if you're looking at this with the thought that rounding of the back is actually going to hurt you down the road, then, well, I have news for you, because not having this ability is actually putting you more at risk for tweaks and lack of benefit than having the strength through range and having the ability to round the back. This is everything that I know about spinal flexion for hockey training. What I was doing just there is a heavy Jefferson curl. You don't necessarily have to go that heavy, and honestly the form wasn't really that good because it's just random show off reps. I don't usually go that heavy with it. Even just, body weight is good enough for me at this point, although if I wanted to progress heavier, I would. If people are just starting out rounding the back and they have problems there, then a simple elephant walk will do the trick for them. And that's really the main message behind spinal flexion, is that you need to work at it at an ability that you can do, not focusing on the things that you can't do, focusing on what you can do. So if you're comfortable rounding your back right about this position right here, okay, get a height that you're comfortable with and start doing something really basic like an elephant walk, which is very accessible for people. Or if we were to go to a machine like this with the back extension, then you can set things up right here. So these are very common in most gyms. What you have right here is a 45-degree back extension. This is mimicking basically that same exact position you get into on that Jefferson curl, except you have support here. This is a very, you can relax here, no problem. If you really needed to, you can get support right here or use the handles to help push you back up. But even if you can't round your back that much, even just holding it in a position that you're comfortable with and then slowly going in and out, or even doing static holds, that's good enough right there. Not a lot of people who are starting out with rounding the back either haven't done it or have various past traumas with them, and so getting into this position is scary, and it very well is. And the low back is one of those areas that is probably the most sensitive area of the body. In a psychological sense, it's the closest to our being, our center of being, I should say, or it's closest to our soul. And therefore, any little tweak or trauma or even a mental health case will affect the health and state of our low back, whether we're in pain or out of pain, whether we feel that we have a general strength of the low back or we have the support of our friends and peers and families and community. There's a lot of things that go into the low back. So I want to be, I've talked about this before, this is a place to be very careful with and progress at your own leisure, but you can train it exactly the same as you would with every other part of your body. It's just with a progressive overload area. So you do want to round the back in addition to extending the back. I had a recent video about the seated good morning, and that focuses on spinal extension. There's other exercises that also focus on that. Traditional deadlifts focus on it. Romanian deadlifts focus on it. Snatch bar deadlifts also focus on it. You want to resist the back from rounding. You want to be strong in that position, but to balance out the body between sides, which I believe gives the opportunity to give the most ability possible for you as a hockey player, even you as a person. You need to be strong in both areas. My back pain went away when I got strong at that Jefferson curl. As hockey players, we're always stuck right here. It's very hard for us to get into this position here where you're rounding the back, you're able to get your palms to the floor. I don't know of a hockey player outside of goaltenders who can get their palms to the floor like that or even compress themselves like this. I'm not even a goalie, and I can get into that comfortably. Yoga didn't do that for me. It was getting strong in a range, stretching myself out, and then strengthening through that position, which yoga does a little bit of that, but it doesn't go to the same extent as most of this ability training does, where you're adding weight to that stretch position. You're adding a certain amount according to your body weight to that stretch position. So speaking of that, standards for the Jefferson curl, you don't have to go any more than 50% of your body weight in total. If you're a goalie, you could pursue going heavier than that just because you're going to be in a very stretched out position and you need to be strong in that position. So, well, think of it this way. If you're in a very vulnerable position and you're not strong, but you're flexible, it might be very easy for things to break apart. If you want to think about it that way, sometimes our bodies work like elastic bands, and sometimes they don't work like elastic bands. But that falls in line with an elastic band analogy, where you're stretching out, but you're not strong in that stretched out position. Whereas if imagine that you are stretched out, but also strong in that position, like with a heavy Jefferson curl. Well, when you do get into vulnerable positions, like you would as a goalie, or even just as a general hockey player, you're not going to hurt yourself or get any tweaks, or at the very least, it'll be very less likely to, at least out of your own doing. Obviously, if you clobbered by a meteorite or anything else that's a contact injury, then that's not going to go fare well for you. But the point of this is to showcase that spinal flexion is equally, if not more important than spinal extension, especially for hockey players. So, because oftentimes the seat of good morning is something that you might be strong in, but that's because your hips are going to be compensating for that. When I first did it, I noticed that my hips were stronger than my low back, because my low back would do this, and actually the entire posterior chain above my hips would do this. Over time, as things got stronger, I started to have that ability more, being able to squeeze all the low back and upper back muscles in addition to the things down here. And I credit both the back extension and the Jefferson curl for starting to open things up. You could view this as something that causes a mind-muscle connection, where you're getting blood flow to an area, and that sends signals from your brain to those muscles to be able to fire it off a little bit better. And then the Jefferson curl, because it's really stretching you out, and then you're adding load to it, and then strengthening out of it by doing a repetition instead of holding it statically. Well, that allows you to, when you do get into a longer position, then you'll have more ability there. It's studies have never shown that more ability is a bad thing. At least most of the studies that are out there, because I don't think some of this has been studied to a good degree. Now, a few entry points, like I mentioned, back extension. You can also put this up to a 90-degree position and do something very similar. Also, on both of these positions, you can work with keeping the back extended the whole time and not rounding it. That's a different exercise, but right here you'll see that I'm rounding the back just fine, and then coming back up right here. So those are two different areas. They get two different strength curves as well for the low back, kind of like I talked about in my low back video for Mark Stone at the time, although he's doing pretty well, it looks like. So don't fear spinal flexion. Work into it at a level that you can do it, not a level that you can't do it. These are some base exercises. There's some more things that you can do with it, like with the upper backs, like and shoulders. That helps to open things up too. But from purely a spinal flexion perspective, this is going to help it out. I don't get back pain anymore when I play hockey. It's partially because I train both sides of spinal flexion and spinal extension. So thanks for watching. I will see you next time.